My name's Adam Manaka and I'm the Financial Controller for Hi-Tech Oils. With our national capacity, we can now service Australian companies nationwide. Of late, we have now expanded into the New Zealand market. Here at Hi-Tech Oils, we receive premium base oils and premium additive packs. Together, with our highly trained staff, we manufacture over 500 premium quality products. Hi-Tech Oils is Australian made and Australian owned.
Hello and welcome to the 6th of 8 rounds in the 2018 FIM Maxxis Enduro World Championship. After a 2-month summer break, the teams and riders are back in Italy once again in Adolo, a village in the Lombardy region in the north of Italy, just south of the Swiss border, for the Assobis Grand Prix of Italy. The southern reaches of the Alps loom large on the horizon for this event organised by the Motor Club Sabino, with the promise of a classic enduro test. In Italy that means plenty of rock and tree roots to deal with on top of the rain and resulting mud forecast by the weather gurus. We start with the news that Matthias Bellino will no longer be able to take his planned place in the field at his home event in France in a few weeks' time. The Frenchman, an E3 world champion back in 2015, suffered a terrible crash in a rally raid event in Argentina over the summer, injuring his back. An emotional EnduroGP paddock wishing the popular 27-year-old the speediest possible recovery. As ever, the action got underway on Friday afternoon with the Krapovic Super Test. This, a 1-kilometre stage specially set up to allow as many people the chance to watch as possible, with time bonuses available for the top 10 on the night. Given the wet and slippery conditions, this test taking place in the rather aptly named Swimming Pool Arena, catching out some of the best in the business as the 84 riders tackled the course 2 by 2. E2 contenders Iro Remes and Loic Lario among those to suffer in front of the Tifosi. There were no such problems from Gas rider Daniel McCanny, though. The Manxman very much at home in such conditions, racing round to pick up a 10-second time bonus for second place. But he was no match for Bradley Freeman, the E1 class leader, in stonking form as he took the 12-second bonus for the stage winner. However, they were all put in the shade by junior standings leader Mattia Cavallo, the Italian taking advantage of having a cleaner track to ride to set the fastest time of all. However, as the beta rider is not yet in the senior ranks, Freeman still given the maximum bonus in EnduroGP, a great start to his weekend. With the season climax fast approaching, 2 men have made the fight for the EnduroGP World title all their own. Alex Salvini came into the weekend with an 8-point lead over defending champion Steve Holcomb, and we had a cosy chat with the pair as they prepared to renew their battle.
For sure it's going to be a tough races, but you know, this is the end of the job, you know, the tension is getting higher, and but you know, we are professional riders, we know how to manage the situation.
For me, like looking at the season, the last 3 GPs were where I could see myself, you know, shining really.
Holcomb looking to improve in a season that's been solid, if not spectacular, with just a single win to his name in Spain. His former beta teammate hopes he's left himself too much to do.
For sure, he's the, you know, the champion of last year, you know. He's the man to beat right now. So I'm already glad to be to leading the championship at this point of the season, you know, because it's not easy to come back you know, this quick to the top.
Definitely, he's been really strong. It's been good to see. You know, really spent a lot of time with him in the last few years, and you know, his sort of the effort he put in didn't really show in his performance. Whereas I think this year his performance, you know, has been great.
Salvini in the box seat with 5 wins under his belt already, but Holcomb believes tactics could come into play down the stretch with the Italian firmly in his sights.
the last few seasons I've always really ridden defensively, whereas, you know, at least now Alex is the one that has to ride defensive, and it changes your mindset massively.
So I try always to do my best, but also at some point you have to go a little bit over the limit to try to win.
The battle lines have been drawn. Stay tuned to see just which of these former teammates comes out on top over the last 3 weekends of the season, starting here in northern Italy. With the fun and games of Friday out of the way, the riders emerged with their machines on Saturday morning, with the snow-clad mountains looming, ready for a long day in the saddle. A super crowd awaited too before they tackled this traditional Italian enduro course featuring an especially demanding enduro test. The course that awaited configured in a figure of 8, with the riders facing 4 laps on both the Saturday and Sunday. That meant a 176-kilometre journey and at least 7 hours of hard riding for all involved. The weather forecast wet and getting wetter until the rain stops in the afternoon. First up, the Max's cross test, a fast and flowing 5-kilometre stage split between forest and meadows, studded with flat, camberless corners. We'll have more on taking those corners later in the programme. That followed by what promises to be the crux of the course, a tight and technical 10-kilometre X-Rocks enduro test, threading its way through the forests just outside Edolo. Plenty of rocks and tree roots to be wary of through this part of the track, with big chunks of time to be lost by the careless or just plain unlucky. Finally, the Technomoose Extreme Test, just 2 kilometres in length, situated in the same riverbed that hosts the Super Test on Friday night. Water levels here a potential concern, especially if the forecast rain gets out of hand. Midway through the day, there was potentially explosive news in the race for the EnduroGP title. Championship leader Alex Salvini out of the running after just 8 tests when his bike simply shut down and refused to restart. The Italian down in a relatively lowly 6th place at the time, and originally thought his Husqvarna had been hit with an electrical problem. However, after taking some time to examine the bike thoroughly, a rather more unlikely culprit emerged.
At the end, we found that it was water in the fuel. It's so strange, but unfortunately it happened, and you know, it's bummed, but it's part of the game. You know, motorsport is like this.
Davide Garneri delighted to be back on his bike, having been sidelined since a horrific crash in Portugal damaged his back. The Italian, obviously with his batteries fully charged, 4th in E1, his best result since the opening day in Spain, also taking his Honda to 13th in EnduroGP. Christophe Charlier was also back in action after his big fall in Trentino, but not quite back up to full pace yet. The beta rider perhaps not at full fitness, dropping down to 12th overall in the afternoon after a bright start and just 5th place in E2. Daniel Macani's season has been one mostly of frustration, struggling for his best form and seeming to find it last time out in Trentino, but following that up in an 11th place here and only 4th in E3. The Gas rider continuing to look for his best stuff. Meanwhile, Anthony Geslan has been getting faster and faster as the season progresses, this time repeating his high tide mark of 10th place on the opening day in Estonia, and also taking the bottom step of the podium in E3 for the 3rd time this season for Beta, although he was more than 3.5 minutes behind his dominant teammate at the top of the timesheets. Christophe Nambertin, currently a rather distant second to champion-elect Steve Holcomb in E3, losing further ground with a 2nd place here, over 3 minutes behind the Briton on Saturday, although that's still enough for 9th overall, despite a late drop down the rankings from 7th earlier in the day. Antoine Basset finished 3rd in E1 to claim his 7th consecutive podium and remain 3rd in the class standings. But the French gas rider took advantage of his teammates' late slump to finish in 8th place overall, his best result of the season. 2016 Junior World Champion Giacomo Redondi has been mostly plying his trade abroad this season, but took time out to ride in his 2 home World Enduro events. The Honda man impressing again here, 7th overall, but just missing out on the E2 podium. Thomas Oldrati's form curve continued to rise on home turf. The 2008 Junior World Champion recovering from a dire start to the season and indeed a sloppy start to Saturday's race to surge up the leaderboard to a season's best 6th in EnduroGP, but also up to 3rd in E2, his first visit to the podium in Honda colours.
Enduro test is very much stone and slippery, but he's very happy to come back at the podium and the first with Honda.
The first part of Loïc Lério's season had been blighted by a nagging wrist injury, but the Frenchman seemingly fitter and stronger after his summer holiday. His Yamaha in the fight for the overall podium until a chain problem on the 3rd extreme test, eventually having to make do with 5th overall and 2nd in E2 for the 4th time this season.
I try to do my best all the day, but one time in the extreme the chain is going out to the steel. I lose many seconds, and after on the other test I push and I make some good time. I'm happy about that.
Jamie McCanny just happy to be back on his bike after having to rest instead of train over the summer due to dislocating his shoulder in Trentino. As a result, the Yamaha rider somewhat surprised to find himself in the fight for victory most of the day, before a lack of fitness understandably saw the Briton drop down to 4th on the very last stage, although he did hang on to 2nd in E1.
I think I lost the 3rd in the scratch on the last, but I didn't know. I wasn't looking at times and just tried to enjoy riding my bike. And yeah, it was a really difficult day, and it's well done to everyone who finished, because it was a really difficult day.
Iro Remes has been adamant all season that his main priority is to add an E2 world title to his 2 previous triumphs in E1 rather than shoot for glory in EnduroGP. With that in mind, Salvini's DNF a godsend for the TM rider, winning his class here to move within 14 points of the Italian and also pipping Jamie McCanny on the final stage to claim a first overall podium since the opening day in Estonia by less than a second. Reigning junior world champion Bradley Freeman continues to stun and amaze in equal measure. The beta rider a distant 2nd overall, but also taking a 5th consecutive win in his E1 class to extend his lead over Jamie McCanny. The Briton riding with such precision, in fact, that he managed to kick up a stone with his rear wheel, hitting our intrepid cameraman precisely on the mummy daddy button. How's that for accuracy?
Yeah, it was good today, but no, that was one of the hardest races I've done this year. No, the rain didn't make it easy at all, and then when it stopped, it just got slippier, and it just was a hard day.
Reigning champion Steve Holcomb arrived in Nodolo he needed to lay down some sort of marker in his title fight with Salvini, and even before his title rival pulled out, the beta rider was already powering away at the top of the leaderboard. In perhaps his favourite conditions, he eventually set 9 scratch times in 13 tests to ease to victory by just under 90 seconds, just his 2nd of the season, and moved to the lead in the EnduroGP standings for the first time.
You know, my plan was to be strong in the enduro test this weekend. You know, it's really tight, really technical, and sort of suited what, you know, my riding style. And yeah, like you say, everything went to plan, and had a really strong day. I had one small mistake in the last cross test, but other than that, it's been really good.
A superb performance from Holcomb then, taking advantage of Salvini's misfortune in the best possible manner, while Freeman continues to go from strength to strength and seems sure to be an EnduroGP title rival over the coming seasons. Thus far this season, every round of the championship has thrown a different set of challenges at the riders, and Nodolo is no exception. Here on the cross test, they're faced with slippery grass and mud, and no camber to help. Let's see how the experts face up to life on the slide. Well, the flat corners are not easy because there are many different lines you can take, always trying to hit the apex on the inside of the corner after approaching from as wide as possible. So, taking a wide line going into the corner, getting tight to the apex, and then drifting wide as you power out of that same corner. There's also the matter of adjusting your technique for fast or slow corners. Here's one of the local heroes to explain the differences.
The corner is quite fast. My technique normally have a clean style. I go on braking, leave the brake quite early, let the bike go with speed inside, and feel the front wheel. When the front wheel gets a bit loose, then I open the throttle softly. If there is more grass, more softly, and if I can do it a little a little bit traction is better, you know, with the weight on the outside of the peg, and immediately 2 feet on the pegs and go out. Slow corner, sometimes you arrive, you brake, you keep braking with the back, make the bike slide with the back brake, and immediately you feel the bike is already turning, you leave the brake and you control with the gas till the end of the corner. Same, 2 feet on the pegs, finish the corner. That is important to look forward to how it's changing lap by lap, especially when sometimes 4 laps to the race.
And now for something completely different. Meanwhile, Red Moto Honda have unveiled their new equipment for the 2019 season.
This is the new range of all CRF, so we start with 450. It's totally renewed with new design. We make also the 400, the special edition. The 250 is totally renewed, also the same technical detail of 450. So new chassis, new swing arm, the black foot pad, different mapping, different piston. From 250 we developed the 300 version. It's totally new this year, 300. That's it, all of 2019 models from Red Moto.
Now to the Junior World Championship. On Saturday, Jack Edmondson moved into 3rd place in the standings with his first podium finish since the opening round of the Junior Championship in Spain. The Sherco rider helped by the absence through injury of Davide Soreca, and perhaps some wise words over the summer from his father, 4-time world champion Paul Edmondson. Meanwhile, a fierce battle raged for the race win. Andrea Verona without a win since that opening weekend in Spain, and the TM rider determined to end that streak. The Italian leading after 5 tests, but ultimately making do with second as compatriot Matteo Cavallo went through the gears. Frankly, Cavallo in a class of his own in the junior section this season. His sheer pace and consistency simply too much for Verona down the stretch, taking his beater to a 33-second victory in the end to claim a 6th win in 8 races and once again extend his championship lead. Youth Championship, it wasn't such a great weekend for standings leader Rui Barbosa. The Chilean strangely off the pace on his Husqvarna, nearly 2 minutes off the lead in second on Saturday and a lowly 5th on Sunday, though he still leads those standings by 14 points. The big winner this weekend was Hamish MacDonald, becoming the first ever Kiwi winner of a World Championship Enduro event on the Saturday and again on the Sunday in conditions that made him feel right at home. The Sherco man, now Barbosa's main title rival.
Yeah, no, it was a good weekend for me. I just rode solid and tried to put my times down and keep consistent. But no, I'm happy with how I rode and bring on France.
To Sunday in the junior section, and British rider Joe Wootton is finally getting his act together after a sluggish start to the year. The Husqvarna rider with a first podium in Trentino and 3rd again here on day 2 after a DNF on the Saturday. After pushing Cavallo almost to the limit on the Saturday, TM's Andrea Verona unable to repeat his attempted heroics 24 hours later. The Italian winning a tense battle with Wootton and Theo Espenas for second, but the day's winner simply on a different planet. On the Sunday, Cavallo producing his most dominant performance to date, winning the opening test and never looking back. He didn't need to, setting the scratch time on every single stage to take the win by nearly 3 minutes and extend his lead to 31 points in the championship standings.
Yesterday I fight a lot with Andrea, that he was really fast, and today I make a really nice day. I was the fastest on the track in the junior from the first test to the last.
It scarcely seems possible now that Cavallo only came 4th in last year's junior championship, such as his dominance in 2018. After a good night's sleep, the riders were back at the start gate on Sunday morning, although without the benefit of umbrellas. Any onlookers could count themselves lucky. Unlike the previous day, that rain only set to get heavier as the day progresses too, creating conditions that should stretch the riders' nerves and reserves of talent to their very limits. This a weekend to forget for Christophe Charlier, the French beta rider, only 12th on Saturday and running down in 16th after 10 tests on Sunday thanks to a troublesome hand injury, and after that deciding that discretion was the better part of valour. Davide Garnere's long-awaited return to competition was not as successful as the Honda rider had hoped, especially on home turf. 13th overall on day one and one place worse off a day later. The Italian 4th in E1, but surely not back yet to full fitness following his back injury. Loic Lario's hopes of repeating his result from Saturday dashed when he lost nearly 2 minutes on the second enduro test. The outsider's Yamaha rider eventually ending up down in 12th and only 5th in E2. Daniel McCanney's Sunday could hardly have got off to a worse start. The Gas rider down in 18th place after a disastrous opening 2 tests and always playing catch-up after that. The Manxman did rally late on but still couldn't crack the overall top 10, missing out by just 2 seconds and missed the E3 podium by the same amount. Anthony Gesland certainly getting to grips with EnduroGP in his first season up from the juniors. The beta rider 10th for the second day running in a Dolo, also making it a pair of podiums in E3 over the weekend. Antoine Basset may not be in the same class as the E1 frontrunners, but his consistency has to be admired. Third place in E1 on Sunday, his 8th podium in a row, and only 30 seconds behind second place man Jamie McCanney. 9th in EnduroGP, also a fine result for the Frenchman. Jamie McCanney struggling for fitness, although you wouldn't have guessed that on Saturday. Sunday, though, a different matter. The Yamaha rider also struggling for pace and never able to threaten E1 leader Bradley Freeman, ending up in a respectable 8th overall, but hoping for better in France. Iro Remes, another to never quite find the same spark that carried him to the overall podium the previous day. The TM man having to settle for 7th place after overhauling McCanney once again near the end of the day, and 4th in E2, an obvious disappointment for the Finn. Giacomo Redondi had certainly done enough over the 2 Italian rounds of this year's championship to suggest his future lays here, if he wants. 5th, 7th and now 6th overall in his 3 races in Italy, and 3rd in the uber-competitive E2 class, making it 2 podiums out of 3 for the 2016 Junior World Champion. Christophe Nambertin doing well to pick up his form on Sunday after a lacklustre showing the previous day. The Gas rider sitting in 3rd until a big mistake on the final enduro test dropped him down to 5th, although he did hang on to 2nd in E3. Honda's Thomas Alderati turning back the clock this weekend, a Junior World Champion way back in 2008, the Italian inspired in a Dolo. The season's best 2nd in E2 and almost took an overall podium too, only to be overhauled on the final test despite setting the 2nd best time.
Incredible day for me because the big fight with Alex and Giacomo and finish 2nd for I don't know 4 seconds with Alex and incredible week. It's very happy for my team.
Alex Salvini pushing his Husqvarna 2 or even past the limit on the final stage, taking 6 seconds out of Aldrati to claim the bottom step of the overall podium and limit the damage in the championship standings. This was also the Italian's 7th win in E2 in the last 9 races, stretching his lead over Remes in those standings to 20 points despite his DNF on Saturday.
Today I'm so happy. I got the victory in the class and 3rd overall, so it's the best that I can take. Remain for 4 days, so everything can happen. I'm in the game, at least, and I'm glad to be in the game.
Beaters Bradley Freeman pleased with 2nd on day 1, but rather miffed at being nearly 90 seconds adrift of the winner. The Briton much happier then that on Sunday he managed to really take the race to Steve Holcomb, even holding the lead until early in the 3rd lap before Holcomb put the hammer down and powered to victory. Freeman, though, delighted with a 6th consecutive E1 win to go 24 points ahead of McCanney in those standings.
The race was awesome, I've got to be honest, and I got to thank the motor club and everyone for putting it on, because the town of Edlow put on a really good race to be stood there fighting for the overall in a wet race. No, I'm absolutely over the moon and got the red plate now, so what's there to complain about?
But the star of the weekend was Steve Holcomb, the beta rider hardly putting a wheel out of place and now appears to have the wind in his sails going into the final two events of the season. The Briton not having things all his own way this time, but reacting to that pressure in the best possible way, just when he needed it most. This a third overall win of the season and 7th in E3, where he now holds a 30-point lead in the standings.
Coming into this weekend being 8 points behind and, leaving with, I think it's like 16 ahead now, it's, almost more than I could have imagined. Feeling good, feeling focused, and like you say, I know what to do now, and pretty happy to start training hard for France and push through to Germany.
Brilliance then from Holcomb, showing that his desire to add to his 2 previous world titles remains as strong as ever, although he appears set to have some furious battles with Freeman over the coming years. Salvini doing well to limit the damage on a course that appeared to suit Holcomb's strengths down to the muddy ground. And with that, Holcomb now leading the championship for the first time this season by 16 points with 80 left to ride for, while Freeman has now moved ahead of Remes into 3rd place. That's it then from Idolo, and a dramatic weekend in the 2018 FIM Maxis Enduro World Championship. It's now time to make our way to southern France, where the EnduroGP paddock will join local amateurs for the annual Endurance of Metamis. Ciao, ciao!